Hey there, everybody. Welcome to our review of Killing Eve Season 4, Episode 6. One of my big criticisms for this final season has been at times it doesn't feel like a final season. This episode felt like it was in the final season.
Yeah, things are starting to kind of tie up somewhat.
There is death, there is rage, there are surprises, there's so much to get into in this video. But before we do, hit that subscribe button because if this felt like the final season, imagine what the last couple of episodes are going to be. And we don't want you guys to miss any of our coverage of those.
Also, follow us over on Instagram, Matt and Jess TV. Thank you to everyone who's been giving well wishes for our dog. She just had surgery on Wednesday, and we've been keeping everyone up to date over there on how the healing process is going. So thank you very much to everyone.
Thank you guys. Okay, I think the natural starting place here is I think we need to say our goodbyes to Helene, who had quite the death, I think we can say in this episode.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not surprised she didn't make it out of this season or this series alive. I thought she was going to be kind of kept around a little bit longer. I thought maybe final episode, maybe even the next one, but they surprised me, which is one of the things I love about this show.
I think what surprised me was number one, like you said, I thought she was going to last another episode, but then the circumstances of how it all went down. I mean, I will say the moment that I realized that Villanelle was underneath the bed and Helene starts talking to Eve about, the bath and the kiss, I felt very confident in that moment. I was like, oh, this is going to be the end for Helene in just a matter of minutes.
Yeah, and it did at that moment feel like it was going to be the end of Villanelle and Eve, at least on Villanelle's side. I mean, we've seen her this season really come to terms with her feelings for Eve and how important Eve is to her, and that there's a love there for Eve. But like that, just the look on her face was just such like hurt, betrayal. How could she? Like, it was when she walked by, even was just like, no, I'm done with you. I was like, yeah, and you should be at this point. I mean, Eva has really not been there for Villanelle this season.
No,
She has
yeah.
pushed her away. She's put her in jail. She's, with Helene, I know that it's not the same, but just the same. I mean, she's been really treating Villanelle like poo. I won't say the other word so we don't get demonetized, but it's been not good. So I was actually happy to see Villanelle just stand up for herself a bit to be like, no, you can't treat me like this. You've been treating me like this for all this time now, and it's enough. I've had enough.
I feel like what had to have come into Villanelle's head in that moment when she hears that, oh, Eve was together with Helene is I'm not special anymore. I'm just another assassin that Eve has been fascinated with, and there is this sort of dance that's going back and forth. And I am not even going to try to attempt to get into the mind of Villanelle, but even maybe in that moment she's like, oh, are there others out there that Eve is also fascinated with? Am I even not special to that degree? As I think it just opens the floodgates for paranoia, and I don't think Villanelle is the sort of person you want to be paranoid. Like, Eve is lucky
No.
she didn't get killed in that scene.
I'm actually surprised that Villanelle didn't kill her in that scene. And I say this just because Villanelle is very reactionary with a lot of stuff. So we have clearly seen that this character has grown. Because if this was Villanelle back when we met her and Eve hurt her, then Villanelle probably would have just killed her on the way out and was like, I'm done with you,
Yeah.
and I'm done with you. But because there's something deeper there with Villanelle, she can be done with Eve, but not kill her.
I think she's understood a certain level of nuance, especially in this final season. I think she's also probably, I think, trying in her head on some level to differentiate herself from at least some other people within the 12. And
Yeah. Because we also saw with Villanelle, like earlier in this episode where, we had seen that she had gotten hit with the arrow. It was very intentionally not to kill her. We will get more into that later. But we saw when Eve came into the room that Villanelle was like, get her out of here. Like, I don't want her in here. She's got to go. And Eve has come to this more of a realization. I feel like she's had the realization for a while of her feelings for Villanelle, which is why she's done some of the things she's done this season, like get her arrested. And
Yeah.
Villanelle ends up calling her out on that. And it's just like, you got me arrested. And Eve's just like, yes, I thought that things could be better for me if you weren't around, like that I'd be able to sort of concentrate and not feel like this anymore. And it was a very interesting moment when Villanelle ends up leaving and she goes down to the pier and she's hobbling around and
Yeah.
we see Eve come up with the scooter and it's like, hey, do you want to ride? And kind of flirting a little bit. And there's a little moment there where I could see Villanelle maybe kind of warming up. But Eve just has a one-track mind where she's just like, and by the way, the 12, Lars, this, that. You could see that Villanelle's just like, you don't care about me at all. Like, I am, just get out.
That's, I think, what makes all of these relationships so fascinating is that I think all three of the core women on this show, Eve, Carolyn, Villanelle, like all of them are either stuck by the 12 or are trying to like escape the grasp of the 12 on some level. And I think Eve's big failing is that Eve can't see past this desire to take down the 12, even if she has these subconscious feelings for Villanelle that pop up here or there. She's so single-mindedly attempting to conquer this goal that I think she's willing to conquer any sort of hope that she has of happiness or normalcy in the process.
Yeah, and it looks like Villanelle, now that she's killed Helene, she's let go of Eve, or at least she has in that moment. It feels like she is moving forward now, because after she got the note from Gunn, who reminds me a lot of Gunhild for anyone who watched Vikings. She's very much feels like a warrior. But anyways, she got that note from her basically saying, hey, Helen wanted you dead. I don't, here's where she is. Go take care of that. To see her then at the end go and find Gunn to sort of be like, hey, can I stay here? There's something really just, I don't know, fascinating about these two women where they could kill each other. And, we saw them tussling about, but that scene at the very end when they're kind of both just kind of laughing and whatever, it was really good.
I am so fascinated with how much of what Gunn and Villanelle's wilderness adventure we're going to be getting in the next. Because I mean, based on what we saw of Gunn when Villanelle first approaches her, this looks like a woman who is very much just like living off the land at the moment.
She's a Viking.
She really, the Gunhild comparison is very apt here because this feels like it's going to be a very different world for Villanelle if she does stay here. And the one thing I will have to say to Gunn, watch yourself. The last time that Villanelle was out on the land, it was at that like religious camp earlier this season. We know how that ended.
But we know that it's not going to end with Gunn being killed by Helene, because we also saw, besides the fact that Helene is dead, we saw that call with Helene, which I think is really important because we saw her kind of being like, don't worry, it's okay that you missed, next time you'll do better kind of thing. Get off the phone and be like, what an idiot. But then she had a second call where it seemed like she's putting Pam on taking care of Villanelle, which is going to be very interesting. I mean, we've all been following Pam's story this season, kind of wondering, where is it going? Why are we getting to know Pam as well as we are in the final season? And I think this is where we're going with it.
This is not meant to be an offense to Pam because I enjoy watching Pam. I think she's been a fascinating addition to the show. She's sort of like a good assassin in training for all of us to sort of understand this process. If Pam kills Villanelle, there is going to be rage, anger, things being thrown, tears. I will be so unhappy because she just doesn't matter on the level of Eve or Carolyn. Like, if somebody's killing Villanelle, I think it needs to be in like the top echelon of killing Eve characters.
it has to matter. It can't be a newbie that's, killed her brother and then one other person and it went kind of sideways as it was happening, that she's going to be able to get one over on Villanelle, even if she was the sneakiest sneak. Like, I just don't want to see that happen.
One of the real winners of this episode, by the way, is the fight choreography that goes, because we had like 3 of these different confrontations in one episode.
Yep.
We had Pam and her target, we had Helene and Villanelle and whatever that fight scene was in, then we had Villanelle and Gunn at the end of it, where I thought for at least a split second that somebody was actually going to be killed in that fight.
Okay, let's talk about Carolyn. Because Carolyn,
All
there
right.
was a lot of stuff that was going on with Carolyn. So we're in Carolyn's corner. And
Yep.
we're going to talk a little bit about that meeting with Helene. Because I thought it was very interesting that they have connected these two characters as well. And that it turns out that their fathers were lovers. And this show really has made it feel like this is a very small world and
Yeah.
everyone is connected in some kind of way. When I first watched, I was like, okay, there's too many connections going on. But the more that I thought about it, the more I really liked this connection.
I really liked almost all the Carolyn connections in this episode. I mean, they are really trying to take me on a Carolyn redemption tour after not liking her character for years. But
Did you like her hugging that tree? I
I
don't know how to look like I'm not doing something weird. I'm just gonna hug this tree.
I
She's so funny.
I wanted to be in the room when the director told Fiona Shaw that she had to go and hug, because we both know that she probably had to sit there and hug that tree for like 30 minutes while they got all these different angles.
Yep.
Carolyn was fantastic in this episode. I think, yeah, I like the connections with Helene.
Mm-hmm.
I really enjoyed sort of having this panic that started to spread amongst everyone with Carolyn was a part of the 12 all this time, and seeing all this anger and betrayal, and it just felt like we were really escalating with this character in a way that I did not honestly think we were going to a few episodes ago. It just felt like we were spinning our Carolyn wheels.
So we ended up in this situation where Eve follows Carolyn to where Lars is in this cabin. And we had the whole thing go on where we had Lars is claiming that he knows who's behind Kenny's hit. I was starting by the end of it to be like, you don't actually know anything. I don't think you know anything. Carolyn has done everything that you've asked her to do. You wanted to know what Helen wanted. What, she wants your supervisor. Okay, well, now you know that. Well, how about now? Can I find out who put the hit on Kenny now? No, it just felt like he didn't actually know anything.
I think you are probably correct. I do not believe Lars knew much of anything. He was trying to buy his time, and yet I can't believe I'm saying this, but I really enjoyed Carolyn telling Eve off before she went back there because she was very right in a lot of ways, and just being like, stop killing people, Eve. Let me do things my way for a little while, because I did agree. I felt like her way was actually kind of sort of working a little bit.
Eve is so out of control and messy at this point that nothing is making any sense anymore. Like, when we first met Eve, she was more sort of pragmatic with that stuff, to be like, okay, we have to do certain things to get to certain ends. And Carolyn asking her, listen, I need to get information out of him. Like, we're never going to find anybody else if you just kill him. He has information on who killed Kenny, who was someone who was apparently very important to Eve, but not as much anymore. Like, she was just like, can you just give me the night? I just need to find out who killed my son. Can you at least give me that? Give it to Kenny, for goodness sakes.
Yeah.
And she just didn't. Just came in, blasted Lars away. You're one of the 12. You got to go. And it's just like, you cared so much for Kenny. I found it like just heartbreaking that this is where Eve has gotten to a point that she doesn't care about anything.
I think on an emotional level, I understand that Eve has all of this rage and this frustration that this is basically a weight that has been hanging over her for years at this point. But she's just not seeing the forest through the trees here. And yeah, Lars may not have known that much more information, but what Carolyn said is absolutely correct. I mean, getting rid of Lars, they'll just slot somebody else in the place of Lars. If you want to destroy the whole operation, you have to destroy every piece of the operation. You have to take out the head of the snake. And Eve's just frustrating me, if I'm being totally honest. Like, I have a hard time with this character right now just because she is acting so impulsively, and I don't know what her long-term plan here is.
Yeah, impulsively, irresponsible to everybody's feelings. I mean, she's not been great to Villanelle. She just took away something that could have brought Carolyn a lot of peace. I know she's mad at Carolyn and, all of that, but just the same, like, you can still get revenge on Carolyn without it being that dark or kind of just a really disgusting way to go about it. To make somebody sit in their grief of the loss of their child for the rest of their lives is like another level of dark. And my biggest beef with this particular episode is this. If the reasoning behind a lot of this for Eve coming in and killing Lars is that he's part of the 12, he has to go, then I don't understand why she also didn't kill Carolyn, because they just had a conversation in the woods where Eve is convinced that Carolyn is part of the 12 and is like, listen, I know you were part of the 12. I know that you have a connection to it. Carolyn has told her truth of what it is, where she's like, yeah, okay, it started out as like this, and I was infiltrating this group, and then, with great power, it turns into some darkness, and this is what happened. The way that Eve is acting, it doesn't feel like she believes what anybody has to say. She doesn't take anything into consideration. If she thinks that Carolyn is 12, Carolyn also should have been killed in that scene, and I hate saying that because you guys all know how much I love Carolyn, but the Eve that we're seeing right now would have blasted them both.
If this was 2 episodes ago, Eve could have taken out Carolyn and I would have been A-okay with it. But now I'm kind of rooting for Carolyn over Eve at this point, just because I really think Eve is going to die. And I don't know if it's going to happen until the finale. Maybe she will get what she wants. And the moral of this story is Eve has tried so hard to decimate this organization that maybe she can do a part of it, but she's going to lose every part of herself in the process. It's just, I don't understand her methods. I don't understand where she thinks the end game and all of this is. And it's just like, even if a part of her head is just like, okay, maybe I'll still give Carolyn on some level the benefit of the doubt here and I won't kill her. So it's like, okay, you're willing to give Carolyn the benefit of the doubt, but you're not willing to give anybody else the benefit of the doubt. You don't have any sort of consistency to the logic and the rules. And maybe I guess that's the point, that there are no rules anymore.
I'm going to say this because we're 18 minutes
All
into
right,
the video.
all right.
If anyone is still watching, let me know if you agree. It just feels like this season, they've done a bit of a character assassination on Eve. And they're making her into this person that's just pretty unlikable. And I'm wondering if they're doing that so that when we do get to the very end, the show's called Killing Eve. So,
Yeah.
Are they going
Oh.
to kill her? That people maybe aren't as hurt as they could be, where if Eve and Villanelle really found their feelings for each other and the continued respect for each other, that then it might really break people if they killed Eve at the end. But Eve has not had respect for Villanelle, and things have been going really badly, and it's all because of choices that she's making. And she's not treating anybody well. That I'm just kind of like, if Eve dies now at the end of this, am I really going to be as hurt as I would have been last season or 2 seasons ago? No. She's just turning into a very unlikable character. I said what I said. I'm sorry for all the Eve lovers out there, but, it's not a great season for her.
Since we are so far into the video and you have already introduced all these ideas, okay, here is one. Did we get foreshadowing in this episode with Carolyn basically saying that, she holds herself accountable the most for Kenny's death, and in that way she killed Kenny? Maybe the Killing Eve is about Eve killing every part of Eve in her actions, what she's doing. And I mean, maybe she doesn't literally take her own life, but maybe her actions lead to the destruction and the decimation of Eve, and that's how all of this ends up wrapping up.
Absolutely. I think that it could very well go that way. Killing Eve doesn't need to be, very literal where Eve is going to die. And we've seen, the creator talking about that where it doesn't have to be that literal, but she has been killing Eve. She's been killing who she is inside for seasons now, and she's been changing and changing and changing. This isn't overnight that she became like this. It's all these things that have happened to her, and that's why it's just some of it makes a lot of sense, and then some of it doesn't. Like we saw Villanelle kill Helene in front of Eve, where Eve was like, oh. And then 2 scenes later was like shooting Lars in the head. I'm just kind of like, you can't be on both sides of the coin. You cannot be shocked that Villanelle's killing someone and then be okay that you're killing someone. Like, pick a lane.
I wouldn't be shocked about Villanelle killing anybody at this point. Like, maybe that's just me. I don't know why Eve was suddenly all surprised by it.
Yeah, she knows who she is and she knows what she does. So, like, why are you shocked? Like, did you just meet her?
We've only got 2 episodes left, guys. I hope there's an opportunity for some of this with Eve to come together a little bit. Maybe this character can be redeemed.
As long as I get a satisfying ending for Carolyn, I will be fine with it. She is the character I am the most invested in. And then Villanelle. I'm also very invested in her, of course.
I like Carolyn more. I can't say I'm there with you just yet. I think I'm Villanelle up here, Carolyn somewhere. But you know what, Carolyn? I at least care about you now. You should pat yourself on the back for that. But anyway, hit that subscribe button. We will be here to talk about the final episodes. Follow us on Instagram at Matt and Jess TV, and we will see you here next time.